Welcome everyone to today's Fast Chat. Why should your customers back up cloud data? I'm your host, Nick Cavalancia with Channel Futures, and I'm joined by Lilac Shoenbeck, Vice President of Portfolio and Channel Marketing at Carbonite. Hey Lilac, thanks for joining me today.
Hi, how are you today?
I'm very well, thank you. In sort of highlighting the need for organizations to back up cloud data, I thought maybe we'd use a common example of Office 365 to put some sort of handrails on the discussion, if that's okay. Yep. And I thought where we'd start is sort of what are some of the scenarios where our channel audience might need to back up their customers' Office 365 data?
Sure, yeah. I mean, I think this is a really common question. Why would I even get into this business? And the reason is fairly straightforward. The O365 environment is tremendously good at availability, right? It's up all the time, and that's exactly the point. What it isn't trying to do is actually retain long-term history on what you've got in your environment. So that can be a compliance question. That can also just be an operational best practice. When you think about a user perhaps accidentally deleting a whole SharePoint environment, right? That backup is gone. There's very little retention, and that's by design, right? That's not a fault. And so if you could imagine a scenario where something might go awry, a backup would very, very much help you.
So there's sort of the cloudy elephant, that, as it were, in the room, and you've sort of alluded to the answer already, but I guess it should be asked just so the audience can hear the answer, but isn't Microsoft backing up the data? I know the answer, but I want to hear it from you.
Well, they're keeping the environment of highly available, right? And that is what they commit to. They actually suggest to their users that they should consider backing up the data, right? Because what they have is a limited history and not particularly robust recovery capabilities by design. The whole point of their environment is to make it available and accessible to all of your users around the world, and that's tremendous. What they aren't trying to do is make sure that that file that finance deleted 6 months ago is still available to them.
Right, and so ultimately the question has to become then, from Microsoft's perspective, as it would be sort of every other cloud vendor, but from Microsoft's perspective, who's responsible for the backups?
Exactly, and they state very clearly on their website that they would recommend that you do it. So we would agree.
Yeah, what's your stance on sort of some of the functionality in the cloud platforms? Like in the case of Office 365, you've got like deleted item retention times and legal holds and archiving, things like that. What would you say to the audience about using those as sort of for backups, if you will?
They're not really designed for backup, right? When you think about backup, you can think about it as just sort of checking a box on a compliance checklist, and that is perhaps the most minimal level of backup. The real question is, how am I going to recover? Right? And that's a theme that we see in our business all the time. So if you intend to recover rapidly, easily, not taking up a huge amount of IT person time, then you might want to look at more advanced tools to make the recovery from any kind of event, whether malicious or just accidental or life, right, be as straightforward and seamless as possible.
So then the last question is then, what are some of the options that are available to our audience to back up Office 365?
So there's a number of options. Carbonite has one that is part of our Endpoint 360 suite, which basically is targeted at ensuring that all your user data, whether it's on an endpoint laptop device or in O365, is saved and backed up and incredibly easy to recover. The whole idea is that if somebody accidentally blows away a SharePoint site, or equally, if somebody maliciously decides to burn it down on their way out of the company, you have just a few clicks later, the entire thing regenerated and everybody basically continuing as though nothing had happened. That's so critical to organizations where really we've pretended all this time that end user data isn't with the end user, right? We keep thinking of the data center and is that safe and is that protected? And obviously that's important, but so much of business data is managed and protected and owned by end users in any of these locations. Companies can't afford to just lose it and leave it up to chance.
Great answers. I've been talking today with Lilac Shoenbeck, the Vice President, of Portfolio and Channel Management at Carbonite. Lilac, thanks for your time today.
My pleasure.